Welcome to Left, Right and Centre. On the show tonight, day 2 of the big revelations on the Pegasus phone tap. From Rahul Gandhi to the new IT minister and many others, including constitutional authorities, such as the former Election Commissioner Ashok Lavasa. The government says this is all a part of an international conspiracy, but analysts insist that the phone taps constitute perhaps the biggest, most systemic effort at surveillance of citizens in our country, destroying our right to privacy. They ask, is India a surveillance state? On the show tonight, the big names revealed by the Wire report today, and the big question, who ordered this? That's what we'll be looking at. But next on the show, later on, it's a 1-hour program tonight. Enough is perhaps the message from the top leadership of the Congress, who've backed Navjot Sidhu to take over as Congress chief in Punjab. This is despite several last-ditch efforts by Chief Minister Amrinder Singh. The Chief Minister and those close to him tried to reach out to the Congress leadership at the 11th hour. On the show tonight, the Gandhis show who is boss and they back Sidhu. But is there a message here for Congress dissenters? But first, our top story, the latest names outed by the Wire in the newest report on the Pegasus phone tap.
The scandal over the alleged Pegasus phone hack just got bigger. First, it was a long list of journalists. Today, it's top political figures and officials. At least 2 numbers used by Rahul Gandhi were part of the alleged Pegasus phone hacking scandal.
Rahul, let me go inside Parliament right now. We'll discuss on implement. When it comes to surveillance.
Also revealed in the leaked phone number list was the number of Ashwini Vaishnaw, the new IT minister. These names were reported by the Wire as part of the international group of news publications investigating a long list of leaked numbers, with over 300 reportedly from India. The other high-profile targets include Abhishek Banerjee, Vice President and General Secretary of the Trinamool Congress, also Bengal Chief Minister Mamata Banerjee's nephew. Prashant Kishor, poll strategist in the TMC's campaign and now reportedly in talks with the Congress. Prahlad Patel, leaked list contains numbers of Patel, his wife and 15 close associates. Aides of Smriti Irani and Vasundhara Raje, Ashok Lavasa, then Election Commissioner, who dissented in giving clean chits to PM Modi and Home Minister Amit Shah for poll code violations. Family members of the Supreme Court employee who accused then CJI Ranjan Gogoi of sexual harassment.
It is beyond dispute that the data has nothing to do with surveillance.
Barely an hour earlier, Mr. Vaishnaw, as the IT minister, had defended the government over charges of illegal snooping.
It is evident, Honorable Chairman Sir, Speaker Sir, that NSO has also clearly rubbished the claims in the report. A highly sensational story was published by a web portal yesterday night. Many over-the-top allegations have been made around this story. Honorable Speaker Sir, the press reports have appeared a day before the monsoon session of the Parliament. This cannot be a coincidence.
The media investigations have said the agency which targeted these numbers is unidentified. NSO, which is a maker of the Pegasus hacking program, says it only shells these to vetted governments.
भारतीय जनता पार्टी का नाम बदलकर अब भारतीय जासूस पार्टी रख देना चाहिए। अमित शाह को 1 सेकंड भी क्या अपने पद पर बने रहने का अधिकार है? उन्हें बर्खास्त क्यों नहीं किया जाना चाहिए? क्योंकि ये सब तो उनकी देखरेख में हो रहा है।
इस पूरी कहानी में एक एविडेंस नहीं आया है जो भारत सरकार को इससे लिंक करता है। ये सारी कहानी मॉनसून सत्र के 1 दिन पहले क्यों खोली गई? 45 से अधिक देश पेगासस का उपयोग कर रहे हैं, जैसा कि एनओसी ने बताया है, तो सिर्फ भारत को ही टारगेट क्यों किया जा रहा है?
While Gandhi was targeted around 2018-2019 in the run-up to the last general elections, Vaishnaw was reportedly targeted in 2017 before he joined politics. Prashant Kishor's phone was reportedly targeted in 2018-2019 and as recently as April-June, and even this month on the 13th, the day he met Congress leaders Rahul Gandhi and Priyanka Gandhi in Delhi.
With the Union Electronics and Information Technology Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw planning to make a statement in Rajya Sabha on the Pegasus spyware scandal issue on Tuesday, the opposition parties are gearing up to corner the government on this issue and also to demand a joint parliamentary committee probe into the scandal.
While NSO Group has called the report full of wrong assumptions and uncorroborated theories, the Israel-based company again emphasized, we sell technology solely to law enforcement and intelligence agencies of vetted governments. NDTV Bureau Report.
All right, well, let's just go through a couple of the big names which have been outed over here. And it gives you an idea of just how widespread it was. If yesterday the focus was on journalists, today it's on political leaders and many others, including constitutional figures like an election commissioner of India. So Rahul Gandhi, perhaps the most prominent name that comes out over there. Now, Rahul Gandhi, as far as whether Pegasus was detected on his handset, well, the handset in question is no longer in use. The numbers selected for targeting were apparently a few years back. At least 2 phones were used by Rahul Gandhi. These were on a potential target list. Now, at least 9 numbers have been linked to Rahul Gandhi's circle of close associates. They appear in the leaked database at all, but there hasn't been a forensic examination. Prashant Kishor, key strategist, poll strategist, apparently his phone is still very recently continued to be hacked. He was very closely involved in the Bengal elections, helping the Trinamool Congress as an advisor over there. Traces of Pegasus on his phone were detected in 14 days in this month, I beg your pardon, in the month of June last year, including the day in which he met Rahul and Priyanka Gandhi. There have been more conversations also in July that it was actually found, and at least one attack took place this month using the zero-click iMessage exploit. That's a vulnerability which has been found in iMessage. Let's take a look now at some of the other names which have actually cropped up as well. Ashwini Vaishnaw, now strange coincidence over here. The new IT minister of the country defended the government as far as Pegasus was concerned on the floor of Parliament today, but his own name appears in connection with this in 2017. He was under surveillance at that stage, wasn't an MP at that stage. Apparently, his wife's number is also on that list. Prahlad Patel, a minister in the government, the list contains his number, his wife and close associates as well. He's been under surveillance in mid-2019, days after his son and nephew were arrested in a murder case. So this is also something, this is Justice Gogoi, the former Chief Justice of India, 3 numbers belonging to a Supreme Court staffer who had made serious allegations against the former Chief Justice of India. That woman's 3 numbers were also under surveillance, apparently using software, which Pegasus, which hacked into that phone. The Supreme Court staffer had accused Ranjan Gogoi of sexual harassment. Those charges were later thrown aside, but it appears that those numbers were being monitored through the use of Pegasus. Let's take a look at some of the other names over there, and as you can see, it is a who's who list. Ashok Lavasa, he was a potential target for surveillance in 2019. Remember, during the 2019 elections, or during the process, he had made very strong concerns he had raised, flagging poll code violations by Prime Minister Modi. And his phone number was used, this phone number was used during 2019, and it's part of a list of over 50,000 numbers. So a constitutional authority over there, the election commissioner, who questioned the conduct of the Prime Minister with regard to the elections, he was also questioned over there. He was also hacked over there. Joining us now, Vivek Tanka, Rajya Sabha MP of the Congress, Swati Chaturvedi, the journalist and author of I Am a Troll. I believe her name also figures in this list. I'm also joined by PKD Nambiar and Drew Harwell, a technology reporter at the Washington Post. I'd like to thank you all very much for joining us. Mr. Tanka, bottom line over here, who ordered the probe? This is not software you and I can buy over the table, no matter what the money is. According to the company, it's only governments. So therefore, this entire argument made by the government that the story doesn't link up with them, do you see that as being disingenuous? Because their denial has never been clear.
Shom, I'm very clear that this is something which needs a JPC or a specialized investigation under the aegis of Supreme Court. You'll ask me why. You talk to anybody in the country, whether it be a journalist or a judge or an officer, everybody fears talking on telephone. You ask anybody in the country. I mean, this is something amazing that is happening in this country for some years now. And why? This is part of a huge malaise. I'm not, Pegasus is now the last straw. But what has happened before is, what was IB doing? IB was supposed to be capturing anti-social elements,
right,
but they were keeping a tab on political rivals or political players. What was the Telegraph Act doing all this while? such a weak law that we have, is it protecting us from the privacy which Justice Chandrachud described in the privacy law?
No, so Mr. Tanka, the bottom line is, what could be some of the grounds which justify this use? Now, what the government has said in the past is that, you know, there was no direct association. Could there be any ground in which, and, you know, for example, if there was a foreign government which was involved, where indirectly you could bypass the Telegraph Act or the IT Act and justify the use of this technology, for example, on national security grounds? That's a loophole in our system.
No, there's no loophole at all. There has been no investigation. You need to have an investigation to know the whole story. Now, today I saw two statements. One is by somebody who said this report has to be rubbished. Now, if you are talking to the person who's the actor in this whole episode and saying his version is correct, you don't even want to start the investigation.
Correct, yeah.
Number two, you say there is no evidence. The evidence has to be collected. There has to be a mechanism to start collection of evidence.
In fact, I wanted to put that across to PKD Nambiar. Rather than trash the story, not just by the wire, but evidently raise question marks and say there's an international conspiracy to target India by 16 plus international journals, why not just order an investigation here in India? Why trash a media report which is so serious? And it's not one agency that's doing it.
Well, there are multiple reasons for you to believe that it is a motivated one. One of the first one would be that the timing of this release of this whole stuff.
But so Washington Post has timed their report to coincide with the Parliament session.
Vishnu, may I come in
I mean, just half a second, Swati.
Vishnu.
Can I complete my statement, Vishnu? I'll tell you. The time which it released at 9:30 yesterday, and today the Indian parliaments are supposed to, the monsoon session is supposed to start. So when you say that, when there are some people, if at all, if we believe that it is a truth, why nobody whomsoever is having a phone, your phone or my phone, I believe that it's been tapped, why there is no belief system these people have to go to the Indian judicial system, why nobody is filing an FIR, why nobody is going to a court of law in the country, instead of that straight away going to Washington Post or to a...
No, but they have not gone to the Washington Post.
Or an Amnesty International.
So this is a data leak which has been given to several international agencies. Is everybody conspiring to time this at a time to embarrass the government of India ahead of the monsoon session? That sounds ludicrous.
Vishnu, this is a very basic common sense. Look at...
Really?
One
there is an international conspiracy by 16 media houses to malign the government of India, timing her story just before Parliament.
Exactly, this is precisely. Now I'll tell you one more thing.
May I come
just last week,
Swati, half a second.
There was a Lancet report. There was an Amnesty International which is giving the forensic lab report. I'm also from the technological background. I understand that there are thousands of spyware available in this world to tap a telephone of today. There is no application which is created in
so
this
your point
world
is?
which cannot be tapped. I am not saying that it is, but then there are legal framework in every country. And
all right, so you believe the legal framework in India exists. Swati, you had a point to make, go ahead.
Why Rahul Gandhi is not filing an
May I be allowed to speak? I have several points to make since I'm in part of this program. First of all, my name figures in this list and I'm outraged. I'm outraged as a citizen of India that my government has grossly invaded my privacy for 2 years, has attacked me in this manner, has tried to attack journalists in a democracy. You know, we are still supposed to be a democracy. Now, you know, there is no vast global conspiracy targeting the BJP or the monsoon session of Parliament. 16 global publications have gotten together and have simultaneously broken the story. The BJP has serious questions to answer. This is a weapons-grade military spyware. Pegasus says they only sell to governments.
I'm only asking
who has the money? Who has the money in India to buy this?
Do you have a proof for it? Why don't you go to the police today and say that my phone is getting tapped?
I don't have to go to the police. My phone has been given. Let me answer.
For a JPC straight away.
Mr. Nambiar, she has an answer to that question.
No, may I answer?
Yeah.
May I answer? My phone, I was contacted. My phone has gotten certified by forensic experts who say that the previous instrument I had was infected. This is not a claim I am making, sir. This is a claim which has been made by forensic experts. Please understand, this is not some global conspiracy to defame the BJP.
IT forensic departments. We have one of the finest.
No, but Mr. Nambiar, you see, you must understand something. Mr. Nambiar, if there is a system in our country where there is a surveillance state, where people like Swati are being surveyed, do you expect her to get her own phone
for 2 years
surveyed by an agency which is likely to be investigating her in the first place?
Vishnu, may I ask you
what a joke.
Fundamental question?
What an utter joke. You made a joke of democracy.
By somebody today that my phone is getting
all right, just one moment.
What will I do? I will straight away go to a police office and say that, man,
but would you therefore go to the same agency which could in fact be an expert in looking at whether at forensic examination, but may end up being the same agency which in the first place is looking at your phone? That's why they haven't. It's a system of surveillance.
With that logic, let's close all our police stations and courts.
In a democracy, an attack on citizens and an invasion of privacy.
I think there is a case to make a legal. There is a point to make a legal case, but if somebody says there is no reason to doubt the veracity of Amnesty's efforts at trying to do a forensic exam of this. In fact, I wanted to take that question across. One sec, Mr. Nambiar. I wanted to take that question to Drew Harwell, who's been listening patiently to this. Drew, the bottom line over here is that those who were willing to give their phones or their instruments, to get it forensically analyzed, how comprehensive and how credible was the process of forensically analyzing whether these phones were hacked or not?
Extremely credible. I mean, these were very comprehensive forensic analyses on multiple phones, iPhone and Android. The results of these analyses were tested by an entirely independent set of experts at Citizen Lab in Canada who also backed up those results. So we can tell these are fingerprints. These are Pegasus traces on these phones, dozens of phones that were targeted. In multiple countries, there was not any one national conspiracy targeting any one specific government. These were the results of a really strong and I think comprehensive analysis that found the spyware's evidence.
And would it be fair to say that it is this is a government hack? In other words, it's only do you believe NSO when they say that it's only governments that can buy the software, that it can't be you or me?
Every client we know of is a government partner. NSO has said many times over the years that they only partner with governments, sometimes multiple government agencies inside one country, as multiple states or a police and government agency. So I do believe that anything we see related to this is a government client.
Drew, would you say at a larger level, one of the big issues which concerns people watching this program, people around the world, who rely on end-to-end encryption on WhatsApp or any other Signal or Telegram, any other system, what you now have is so insidious that encryption system end-to-end is gone. Our communications are gone. If a government pays $8 million or whatever, they can listen into whatever it is or see whatever it is that we are seeing.
If your phone is targeted in this way, that is the risk. End-to-end encryption can protect the message in the middle between sender and recipient, but if the spyware is on your phone, it can see and do anything that you can when you're holding the handset, right? It can turn on the camera or the microphone, it can see your messages, and you may not even know. So it is a scary thought, and not everybody will be targeted in this way, but for the journalists and others who we have forensically been able to prove that the spyware was involved, encryption won't help them. If they can see it on the phone, then so can the spyware.
All right, Mr. Tanka, how exactly is this going to progress now? I mean, if the government says they want a part of it, then how does this progress legally in India?
Vishnu, this is too large and too big to be ignored. And if we ignore it, it is only at our own peril. I don't think that the canvas of any earlier revelation was so widespread. Whether it be journalists, it be public leaders, it be judges, I believe that's what is in the media, whether it be officers, whether it be their own people, their own ministers, their own politicians. So I really don't know why this government can even say no to an investigation, and the only way to do it is twofold. One, it could be by Supreme Court monitored investigation, because that would give us a lot of respite that it's going to be fair and transparent, and our JPC immediately.
All right. Swati, you had a point to make. Go ahead.
Yeah, what I want to say, Vishnu, is that, you know, this first of all is only bought by governments. It's a weapon grade system which is extremely expensive. It takes 8 million to get one software to tap to 50 phones. And this has been used indiscriminately. This is taxpayers' money, clearly. Now the government has conceded today, twice, once in Parliament, that Pegasus has been used, and by Ravi Shankar Prasad, our former IT minister. So there is no doubt that Pegasus has been used. Now, I mean, I am a journalist. I am not a terrorist. This software is meant to monitor terrorists. The way it's been used on Mr. Lavasa, who's our election commissioner, Rahul Gandhi, Prashant Kishor, Abhijit Mukherjee, BJP's own ministers, journalists who are still trying to, do investigative journalism in India. You know, it is high time that we fought back. You know, we are still a democracy. It is not okay for the government to attack citizens or journalists it doesn't like by, putting this kind of malware in their phones. I mean, you know the Bhima Koregaon case, it could have happened to us as well. You know, you can put in any kind of stuff on the phone and, make up any kind of case. We cannot become a surveillance state. We are still a democracy.
You know, Mr. Nambiar, the biggest problem today is perhaps that the government has not categorically said that they have not acquired Pegasus. Ravi Shankar Prasad very clearly said there is nothing in these reports which links whatever has been revealed to the government of India. He's not said that the government of India has not acquired Pegasus, or any part of the government of India has not acquired Pegasus. Without that clarification, isn't that a problem?
They said it in Parliament. They have it.
Mr. Nambiar, go ahead.
Yeah, Vishnu, I am nobody to talk for the government, but then one thing I can tell you that the very logic which I am not able to understand, both as a technical person or a person who follow the Indian politics. One is the timing. Second is that we are very sure about it is a Pegasus. It is third, you are already very clear that it is only done by the Indian government. All these informations, if you really correlate it, and then on top of it, there are 15 or 16 or an Amnesty International lab is giving the clean sheet and saying that this is the one it is being done. All of them put together, if you really correlate with any person with a common sense, will be able to understand it is a motivated one. I will tell you.
I'm sorry. There is not one point you have said to explain how it is motivated. Why would it be motivated? These are people who are completely exposed. Do you know what it means for a journalist to know that their phone has been hacked? It means that their sources have been compromised.
For 2 years.
Do you think that anybody would want to be part of something to show off this, this government, and what? It's some sort of acting that they're doing?
Vishnu, I'll tell you, I follow some of your reporting with regard to the defense is one of the finest which I have ever seen.
No, but that's not the point.
No, let me tell you, I completely respect that if your phone or my phone is being tapped by somebody, even with the government, you and me are not a terrorist, and no government have the right to get into my privacy and my private place, which is the telephone. My question here is that what is...
No, but is it okay to get into the phone of a Rahul Gandhi?
Vishnu, you are not allowing me to complete fully. I am saying, what is the proof you have in your
or
hand
Ashok Lavasa.
that your phone is tapped? You are saying that this phone
is
tapped
Swati
by
some
an
sort of
Amnesty
anti-national? Is she
why don't you go
potentially
to the
seditious that you sack her phone?
Why Swati ji and or PKD Nambiar or Vishnu, if your number is there, why don't you go to a police station tomorrow and file?
All right, but my number fortunately is not there. I'm a bit surprised that it's not. All right, look, I'd like to wrap this up for a moment because I want to look at some of the other issues over here with regard to data safety and data security as well. We're very happy to be joined by Milind Deora. He's a former communications minister of this country. Thanks, Milind, very much for being with us. Now, several years back, you'd actually come up with a draft policy which was meant to safeguard every Indian's privacy. Do you feel today, when we are exposed in the manner that we are, it's because we've not acted enough to ensure that we are protected?
One word answer, absolutely. In 2013, as you rightly pointed out, and I tweeted that earlier today, I had initiated India's first national cyber security policy. This was an early time in India's sort of growth as a telecom economy. And WhatsApp was in its infancy. Social media too was in its infancy. And proactively, I thought that it's important that India sets and develops the right kind of institutional safeguards needed to prevent any government, any deep state, regardless of who is in power, from snooping on people's phones unlawfully. We were already aware that technologies were developing. There were different countries, different regions, different non-state actors and hackers who were developing these technologies. So it was done proactively. A big and very integral part of that cybersecurity policy was around the area of personal privacy.
Privacy, yeah.
And upholding civil liberties. And one big element, of course, is privacy. Subsequently, in the last 7 or 8 years, you've seen the privacy debate heat up. Aadhaar was one instance. You had the Supreme Court opining that privacy is an inalienable right of every Indian citizen. It's a fundamental right. And you even had a committee appointed under the leadership of Justice Sri Krishna to prepare essentially a privacy law, which was called the Personal Data Protection Bill. That bill then went to Parliament, went to the government. The government, through Cabinet, brought it to Parliament. It is now sitting in a standing committee of Parliament to be debated and discussed by MPs cutting across parties. The chairperson of that committee was Meenakshi Lekhi, who, congratulations to her, has been elevated and become a union minister recently. And that bill essentially is just gathering dust.
Okay, but let me ask you this.
We have no idea when that bill will be passed by the standing committee, when it will be brought to Parliament, when it will be enacted into law.
No, but Milind, let me ask you this.
Vishnu,
when it comes to protecting people like us, you and me, what about the IT laws in this country? Is it not true that hacking a phone is entirely illegal? Is it not true that it's a jailable offence? There is a large amount, a fine that you have to pay in case that happens as well. Is there an infirmity in the law which exists, the IT Act?
You're right. There are enough legal provisions for that. But as I said, when you look at a legal provision, you look at the entire legal ecosystem on a particular issue, we still haven't developed and upgraded those institutional safeguards. And a big element of that is some form of a privacy law. The Personal Data Protection Bill, once enacted, also envisions setting up a data protection authority, kind of like you have a right to information authority, where somebody can go and it's like an internal tribunal where if you have a complaint, you can go and get recourse. So none of this exists in India. So essentially, the debate in our country and in every country around the world when it comes to digital privacy is really between law enforcement agencies who want governments to be permitted to hack and spy and snoop on people, as much as they want. And it's a debate versus those who are in favor of civil liberties. And I think every government has to find some middle path. But unfortunately, India is so behind in that area that if you compare us to, let's say, the European Union, if you and I, for instance, were citizens of a European country which were part of the EU, we have the legal, constitutional, fundamental right to erase our digital footprint.
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you decide that Vishnu Som can no longer be Googled because you want to suddenly retire
that's your right.
In a mountain
that's
somewhere
your right.
in Europe, it's your right.
No, but one sec, Milind, I'm running out of time. I just want
to
get in one or two more questions.
Institutional safeguards. And I think this is a debate where it's extremely dangerous, it's extremely scary, frightening what has happened. If indeed it is the government that has done this and has authorized NSO, it is humongously anti-democratic. It is a massive invasion of privacy, of civil liberties, and essentially has weakened us at the core of our democratic values. And if it's not the government, then of course, it raises a very serious national security issue. Because if NSO is saying that their clients are only state actors, as in only governments, then which government essentially authorized
No,
NSO,
but are you satisfied
NSO
with the statement of the government thus far, or what this government has said so far on whether they have Pegasus or not? As I understand it, they've not categorically denied it.
Well, this government obviously has a very dubious...
They've sort of kept a distance between the story and the technology, but they've not said that we don't have the technology.
In the court of public opinion, the government has a very dubious reputation with regards to upholding civil liberties. But that said, I think that those individuals who have been, whose names have come out in this investigation, I think that they should demonstrate proof. They should work with different agencies like Amnesty's forensic team, provide their handsets, allow proof to be established, and then file a FIR in a police station,
Sure.
approach us, the judiciary, especially the Supreme Court, and hopefully get justice. That's the only way to do it. Because as much as you and I debate this on television or we talk about it on Twitter, unless there is clinching evidence to suggest that somebody's phone who was named in this investigation has indeed been hacked, it will be thrown out by a court of law.
There needs to be a culture of oversight in this country, one which protects privacy as well. That needs to be in the thinking of governments, with or without a law. Sadly, that is missing in our country. Milind, I'd like to leave it at that. Thanks very much for being with us. I'm going to take a short break at this stage. We're going to come back in the next couple of moments where we're going to look at the Congress, not just in Punjab, but the Gandhis actually having put their foot down as far as dissidents in the party is concerned. They've gone ahead and said that they're backing Navjot Sidhu for the Congress post in Punjab. What does this actually mean as far as dissidents is concerned in the Congress party? That's coming up. Up next, enough is perhaps the message from the top leadership of the Congress party who backed Navjot Singh Sidhu to take over as the Congress party chief in Punjab. This is despite several last-ditch efforts by Amrinder Singh and those close to him to reach out to the Congress leadership at the 11th hour. This was all taking place yesterday. But late last night, the Gandhis took a decision. Some would say that this is a clear sign of them saying, look, we decide what happens. They decided to back Sidhu, and therefore, in putting their feet down, what was the message for Congress dissenters? Joining us now, the Lok Sabha MP of the Congress, Manish Tiwari. Thanks, Manish, very much for being with us. Now, the Gandhis have decided to go ahead and give Navjot Singh Sidhu the post as Congress Punjab chief. Now, is this basically a sign that Sidhu could do exactly as he pleases in Punjab? In other words, a very visible snub to the chief minister.
Well, Vishnu, I have now spent 40 years in the Congress party, and I have seen many changes take place in many states across the country. As the president of the NSUI way back in the early 80s, late 80s, you know, I must have replaced umpteen number of presidents around the country. I did the same thing when I was the national president of the Indian Youth Congress. So these are routine organizational changes which take place from time to time. And I don't think it would be appropriate to read too much into it. The Congress leadership felt that they wanted to carry out a change in Punjab ahead of the elections. They've gone ahead and carried out a change.
No, but isn't there...
And so therefore there we are.
Isn't there more to it? That is this essentially a sign that dissent will not be tolerated, because many leaders close to Amrinder Singh who were trying to appeal to the Congress leadership, they in fact tried to do that yet again. There's been this back and forth. It's been going on for weeks now. Is this a sign that this is it? You need to accept it? Because the entire issue of dissent within the Congress is perhaps gotten to a stage where the entire viability of the leadership was being questioned.
Well, you see, in a political party like the Congress, there's always been a cross-section of views. And those views are articulated privately by different people to the General Secretary in charge, to the Congress President. In this particular instance, there was also a 3-member committee which was headed by Mr. Mallikarjun Kharge, which had the General Secretary in charge, Mr. Harish Rawat and Mr. J.P. Agarwal, as its members. So therefore, they spoke to a bunch of people across Punjab, may have come to certain conclusions. They made their recommendations. But having said that, you see, there is absolutely no way that the contribution and the seniority of Captain Amrinder Singh can be ever undermined. Let's not forget the fact, you know, he spent now 50 years in the politics of Punjab. His stature is equivalent to, let's say, that of Mr. Prakash Singh Badal, who's getting on in years. God give him a long life. But if you were to put two people of comparable stature on one platform in Punjab, that is what the comparison would be.
But how will it actually work on the ground in Punjab between Amrinder Singh and Navjot Sidhu? Now, they have to work together. How will this take place? Elections coming up. You know, how will they co-govern complex election processes there's been so much animosity between them, at least politically?
Well, we'll have to wait and see as to how this plays itself out, because the Congress has to go into this election as a cohesive and a united force. And therefore, the seniority of Captain Amrinder Singh, the fact that we won every single election that we've contested in the past 4.5 years under his leadership by a very, very wide margin. These are factors which need to be taken into consideration. The fact remains that when Punjab was constituted in its present form in 1966, and if you traverse the path from 1966 across possibly 14 assembly elections, 2017 was the only time when any political party had won so many seats in the Vidhan Sabha.
But what about the selection of candidates? Because at this stage, Punjab, the Congress in Punjab is split between those close to Amrinder Singh and those close to Navjot Sidhu. In a situation like this, if you're talking about the selection of candidates with an election in mind, isn't that going to be hugely problematic?
There is no split. Let me tell you that there is no split. There is absolutely nothing of that sort. I think we are really tilting at windmills. We are trying to raise ghosts and then slay them. You see, insofar as the ticket distribution is concerned, Vishnu, you've covered the Congress party for a very, very long time. There is a laid down procedure, and there's a set procedure which plays itself out. And if the Congress president were to accept some of the recommendations which our committee had made, which had looked into the unfortunate performance in Kerala, Puducherry, Assam and West Bengal, it would actually make the entire process of how do you arrive at names for different Vidhan Sabha seats even much, much more simpler.
Okay. Now, the entire issue of dissent within the Congress, the entire group of 23 leaders, as they were known, always, the Congress as a party say that you've always welcomed different perspectives, you believe in discussion. But do you believe that a stage has now come when Priyanka Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi have put their foot down, saying that decisions now need to be taken? National elections just a couple of years later, there is only so much that discussion does. After that, a decision must be made.
Well, insofar as the group of 23 is concerned, that's a nomenclature which was coined by the media.
Yes.
In fact,
that's fair game.
In fact, there are a bunch of people, who have given their entire lives to the Congress party, and they did feel that, certain things should be brought to the attention of the Congress president, and they were brought to the attention of the Congress president through the process of writing a letter. There have been follow-up meetings. There have been various steps which have been taken over a period of time. And yes, in any decision-making process, there comes a time when discussion has to end and a decision has to play itself out. And that decision may not essentially be to the liking of everybody, but what needs to be made sure is that it should be to the liking of a substantive number of people.
No, but is it therefore correct to interpret this that the decision as far as Punjab is concerned is a sign, that in the interest of the party, the Gandhis believe that this is something that needs to be accepted and there's no more scope for talk. This is the way it will be, and it's not just strictly limited to Punjab. It's a broader system of decision making, because the issue of leadership and decision making has been questioned over and over again, given your recent track record in elections.
Well, a decision has been made, and so therefore that decision would now play itself out over the coming months as we go into an election. And therefore, I guess everybody would have to walk the extra mile if we want to really pull off the election, which is an election which was in the bag at least till about 2 months back.
Okay. Now, as far as Navjot Sidhu is concerned, the fact that he is so mercurial, the fact that he's often sarcastic in his tweets, the fact that he seems to have spoken to the Aam Aadmi Party as well, in fact he has, yet the Congress continues to back him now. Is that not a potentially problematic decision in terms of stability just months before an election?
Well, that's a question which you should address to the gentleman himself, because I'm in no position to answer for him, and neither would I really like to. But the fact remains that, as I was earlier pointing out, that all the horses will have to pull together. And the one thing which will have to be recognized is that there is a gentleman who is the Chief Minister of Punjab, and whose seniority, whose gravitas, whose experience, whose contribution to the polity of Punjab is at this point in time unparalleled. And so therefore, if that reality is not kept in mind, I'm afraid that the horses may pull in different directions.
All right, Manish Tiwari, thanks very much for joining us with your thoughts about what some of these decisions might actually be signaling. Thanks very much indeed. Joining us now, Rashid Kidwai, the senior journalist, somebody who tracks the Congress very, very closely. Mr. Kidwai, as far as Navjot Singh Sidhu is concerned, he continues to hit out, be sarcastic in his tweets. He spoke about, for example, in a tweet, leaving a royal household. So, there are no two surprises about what he was talking about over there. Do you believe the crisis in the Congress in Punjab is over?
Vishnu, I think so. If you read between the lines what Mr. Manish Tiwari was saying, he was not defiant. He was not signaling some kind of revolt. Of course, people know that Mr. Tiwari was not very happy, as many others were. But I see a big shift in decision-making apparatus of the Congress party. Remember, there's been Sonia Gandhi, who's the longest-serving Congress president, and even now as interim president, she had a style of working, consensus building, taking everyone on account and all. But this wasn't working since 2014 onwards. So I see a welcome change that now it's actually being passed to the next generation, and Priyanka Gandhi has come in and she has started asserting herself. Whether it will click or not, we'll see. But the whole thing that chief ministers, treating their respective states as their fiefdom, be it, Punjab or Rajasthan or in Chhattisgarh. Now this is going to change. And I think the supremacy of Congress High Command is going to be restored. Congress High Command had become almost defunct. So this is a new beginning, and we need to, look at it carefully.
Is this also a message onto other older leaders in the Congress party that, we welcome your opinion, but then as far as decision making is concerned, it's over? In other words, the group of 23 dissenters, some of them have been accommodated, others have not really been accommodated like in the manner in which they would like to. Is this the message to them that, look, this is it? You say what you want to, but then we decide?
Vishnu, it's not so much about age. It's not old versus young or G23 versus that main organization. I think the whole thing is about ability to win elections, because after all, what is the objective of a political party? So that is being, said that nobody in the Congress is saying that Mr. Captain Amrinder Singh will cease to be Chief Minister of Punjab, or he's being replaced by Sidhu. It's not the case. So, but all the committees and Congress consensus has been that it has to be Captain plus Navjot Sidhu, and Navjot Sidhu as a campaigner, effective campaigner. And there was a reluctance on part of Captain Amrinder Singh and some other people to accept it. Now, what Priyanka Gandhi did was that she pushed that, and she said, no, nothing doing, you have to do it. And right. Sonia Gandhi, Rahul Gandhi, they all supported. So this is what I'm saying. It is significant development that Congress, which was like quite inactive, where decision making had become very tardy, suddenly it seems that worst is over.
All right. Mr. Kidwai, I'm running short on time. Thanks so much. The worst is over. I think we might need to revisit this conversation in a few months, given the recent track record of the Congress. But thanks very much for joining us this evening.